great morning, nice and sunny, a few days after a snowstorm, and this is a great event. Thank you everybody for being here. I am also a cyber warrior. I am also the commissioner geek, I think, probably apropos for me. And I wanted to talk a little bit about cyber and what it means for our community and so forth. But before I do that, I also want to thank all of the exhibitors and the folks that are in the back that are helping out, and also thank the Small Business Development Center for putting this on and hosting this. This is really wonderful. So thank you, ACA, and thank you to the whole Small Business Development team. Now, I actually want to tell you, many of you may or may not know this. When was the first cyber event? What was it, and where did it take place? Anybody want to? I've got a hand raised. What do you think? Okay, did you say 1988? So 1988. Any other guesses? Okay, we're gonna talk about 1988, but actually, I believe the very first cyber war was World War II at the D-Day invasion. And it's a little bit different from the kind of cyber that we think of today, but it actually had all of the same concepts and thinking that was involved in it. So let me tell you what this was. So at the D-Day invasion, one of the things that the Allies did to fool the Germans, and remember, that's one of the things that cyber does, is to fool you into behaving in a way that is detrimental to yourself and to the advantage of the person that is propagating that crime or that event, right? So during the D-Day invasion, the Allies took a bunch of airplanes and put on those airplanes an enormous amount of Navy radio equipment. And then they flew those airplanes over the channel and flew them in a racetrack pattern, basically an oval, and slowly transferred the aircraft across the channel, and they did it at the speed that a Navy ship would travel. And then they had a bunch of people in those airplanes that ran those Navy radios, and they put an enormous amount of communications traffic on those radios to make the Germans think like there was this gigantic seafaring armada coming towards the French coast. And those aircraft flew that racetrack pattern on a path towards Calais, not the Normandy beachheads, but towards Calais. Calais is the place in France that's closest to the British Isles. And it was, at least in part, where Nazi Germany thought the invasion would take place. So they took advantage of that and produced this simulated Navy radio traffic, moved it at the speed of Navy ships. And it is one of the reasons why most of the ground forces for Nazi Germany stayed at Calais so that we could establish beachheads at the Normandy beachheads like Ohama and the other beachheads. So that was the first case of using electronic equipment on a large scale to fool your opponent into behaving in a different way so that you can gain your own personal advantage. Now, it wasn't with computers, but all of the concepts were exactly the same for what cyber is today, about what people do with cyber. And some of cyber is about national to national attacks, things like that. One country trying to gain advantage over another country. But actually, the vast majority of cyber is economic. It's other companies trying to get something from you. Might be your intellectual, or individuals trying to get something from you. Might be trying to steal your intellectual property. Might be trying to fool you into using your credit card and pull money off of your credit card or out of your bank statements. So a lot of it is actually economic, and you have to pay attention to that. So that was, in my estimation, the very first cyber event. And by the way, the individuals that ran those radios called themselves Ravens, Black Ravens. That was their nickname for themselves. And in 1961, the group of people that did that battle and ran those radios decided to create a national association called the Association of Old Crows. Old Crows comes from Raven. And this is now called the AOC. AOC is a national nonprofit business league that supports electronic warfare and cyber defense for the Department of Defense. So there's a lineage from that battle in World War II that comes today to a national nonprofit cyber organization called the AOC that works in the defense business space. So that lineage actually has carried forward, and I always like to tell that story. So it's my understanding of the first real cyber event. Now, we have to pay some attention to what cyber can do to us, and that's one of the reasons why you're here today, to make sure that you understand the best that you can about what you can do to protect yourselves and also kind of what cyber means for your own businesses. So I've got some statistics here, and this comes from an article that I pulled up. It's 10 cyber security facts and statistics for 1918. The first one is that there are, in fact, cyber criminals specifically named on the FBI's most wanted list. This is nationally recognized at the national level as one of the biggest crime areas that the FBI does investigations on. Another one is that mobile malware is on the rise. And this is usually coming from third-party vendors who are offering apps on smartphones, but actually have devices embedded within those apps to try and steal things from you or otherwise cause harm to you. And you have to pay attention to those. So most of these threats come from third-party app stores that host on mobile malware. Also, the United States accounts for half of all breached data, and it's expected for that kind of statistic to continue at least to 2023. So when people are attacking, trying to steal economic data from you, whatever that might be, either your actual money or your intellectual property or something else, about half of those attacks come here to the United States. And also, the impacts of those threats annually impact about 60 million Americans. It's not the 350 million, but 60 million is a huge number. So not everybody loses every year from cyber attacks, but it's a big number of people in the United States that actually lose some kind of value from a cyber attack. And in 2017, that number represented $23 billion in losses. So we are talking big money. It's big crime that's going on here in this environment. You may or may not know this, but the U.S. government spends $15 billion on cybersecurity annually, and that's what they list publicly. I can assure you, I don't know what the number is, but it's much bigger than $15 billion a year. The rest of it is hidden in classified programs because there's an enormous amount of work protecting the nation's security and also trying to protect companies and your intellectual property, and that's being done at a national level because many of the threats come from an international level. But what they publish is $15 billion. And coin mining is a big growth area in cybercrime, and some of you may know what that is, but we're talking about Bitcoin and things like that. That's a big threat area. You have to pay attention to it. If you're involved in that business or thinking about getting involved in that business, do a bunch of research and make sure you know what you're getting into with your eyes open. And also the Internet of Things. We've heard about this term, but basically everything going to the cloud, everything working on the internet, everything working through your smartphone is a process that has increased our security vulnerabilities. It's something to really pay attention to. And also the average cost of data breaches are continuing to rise. This number is not decreasing, it's not staying steady, it's going up year after year. So those are some interesting statistics that I just pulled off of an internet thing that I looked at a couple days ago. Now, I want to talk a little bit about some of the resources that you have here. First of all, some of the presentations are going to be really amazing. You're really going to like them. Actually, you're going to have a challenge because there's going to be multiple choices that you'll have to make about which ones you pick. But one I'd like to actually show to you specifically is something that comes from the Colorado Springs Greater Chamber. And Vince said it was okay for me to show this up here at the podium. So if you haven't been to the Chamber's desk, you can pick up this flyer. This is actually a listing of all the cyber companies that are in the Colorado Springs area. And it's hundreds of them. So this is the map and the location of where those companies are located. So if you think you need some support from a company, this is actually a great resource to help you find the names of those companies. Also, maybe if you're looking in this business space, trying to find a company you want to work for because you either are a professional in this industry or want to be a professional, this is also a great resource for you to take a look at. And it talks a lot about the different kinds of capabilities and resources that we have in our local community. And there is a lot. So just some examples, and it's on the front page. And this is now about different academic institutions in our community that are involved in the cyber business space to give you training and expertise if you're interested. So the Air Force Academy holds a dual NSA certificate in cyber operations and cyber defense. UCCS, University of Colorado, Colorado Springs, is also an NSA certified center of economic excellence in cyber defense. Colorado Technical University is also a certified center. Regis University is an NSA certified center, and Pikes Peak Community College also holds those certificates. So we have 5 different institutions in our community that are specifically academic institutions that have the right kind of certifications where you can take courses if you're interested in getting your own certifications or understanding this better. And then, of course, there's the whole array of companies that we have here that possibly could give you some assistance if you need it. And you know, if you're not in the business of cyber, if you're running a different kind of company, whatever that might be, it is difficult if you're not an expert at this. I do recommend that you go and find the expertise that you need and have them help you protect your company from either economic or intellectual property crime. I think that's very, very important. So it is critical, based on these examples, that you do work in and take advantage of the local and national protection space. These are experts that know a lot about how you can protect your companies and protect your IP. And there's no 100% guarantee at doing that, but certainly in hiring some of those capabilities, you can have a very reasonable mode of protection for certainly most of the more basic kinds of threats that you see. So it's very important that you take advantage of those. I think if you go and look through the different things that we're going to have today, they're really pretty interesting, and I want to highlight a couple of those. So right after I speak here, we have the first breakout session. And in the first one, the Community Impact and Collaboration panel. So you want to talk about how you can be embedded in a community where that community can help you, either through vendor support or through academic support or just collaboration with other companies that have experienced some of these challenges. That panel, moderated by the Chamber, by Vinny, is going to be one of the first things. And then the next one is cybersecurity insurance considerations. So this now has a state of play in the insurance world about protecting your information. The third one is demystifying NIST, the National Institute of Standards. And they actually have cybersecurity standards that are now national standards. And if you're in this business, I'm sure you know about these things. But if you're not in this business, that might be an interesting panel to help you understand about where we've gone as far as some of cyber defense and cybersecurity work. And then throughout the day, we have several things talking about easy solutions for your small business, and that's in one of the breakout sessions. Cybersecurity Simplified to help you understand some of the basics. How to do both Colorado and national cybersecurity compliance, and how to deal with international compliance requirements if your business is on the international market, and some of you probably are, and there are some differences to that. The second breakout session also will include a discussion under the solutions section for Microsoft 365 and how 365 could help you protect your companies from cyber attacks. And again, there is no perfect answer, there is no perfect solution, but these are going to be helpful to help you understand some of the things that you might be able to use. In the afternoon, we have sessions on cyber victims and how to deal with that. Selecting the right cybersecurity assistance, and I think that's actually very important. You want to balance. If you go too far, you might invest too much, and that'll be great. You'll be better protected, but it might be more than you can really afford. So depending on your company, you need to pick what's the right or the wrong balance for your company. That's actually really important. And then in that breakout session is also a lot about cybersecurity policies and blockchain and how that can be of benefit to you in the cybersecurity space. And then at the end of the day, from 4 to 5, we have a happy hour fireside chat from Maria Roth, who's the CIO for the Small Business Administration, and she's here right now. And really looking forward to her talk because that will tell you a little bit about what the Small Business Administration is doing to not only protect their own intellectual property, protect their own business practices, but also to give you some suggestions and advice about what you can do in your company. And that's one of the services that the Small Business Administration helps to provide to us small businesses around the country. So I'm really excited about this conference. Appreciate very much your all being here. I'll be around for a little while, but I do have another speaking engagement in about 40 minutes, and I'll have to depart for that. But I look forward to hearing great things about this conference. Last year's conference was outstanding. I know this is going to be similar, and there's great information in these sessions for you to walk away from today's conference knowing a whole lot more about cybersecurity, whether you're in the business or whether you're new to it. Either way, I think you're going to learn a lot. So thank you very much. Appreciate your time. You all have a great conference.